Hey everyone, if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Paul Vojchehoske and welcome to Nebraska Landlord's YouTube channel, where my mission is simple, and that is to enhance the landlord-tenant relationship. Hey, this video today is sponsored by that red subscribe button. So do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up, hit that red subscribe button, click on the little notification bell. In today's video, we're going to do a follow-up on LB892, or the wholesaling legislative bill before the Nebraska legislature. I did a previous video on LB892. If you haven't watched it, I'll put a link right up here in the upper right-hand corner so you can watch that one if you want to. But after I posted it, there was a lot of discussion about this bill. Obviously, many of you are involved in some form or fashion with that industry. I had a lot of great questions that got emailed to me or direct messaged to me that I wanted to address. So that's the purpose of this video. And just so you know, this is on its way to passage. A couple of wholesalers like, hey, how long do I have to get licensed? And if it passes, it's probably going to go into effect depending on when the governor signs it. But usually these bills go into effect sometime between late summer and mid-fall. So that is the time frame. And then certainly if there's going to be any legal action taken, that would be after it goes into effect. My guess is I've had a couple of people reach out and say that they would challenge it, but that's always the case and no one ever does. But there is an interesting legal argument here. The way that LB 892 modifies the statute, it defines what they mean by equitable interest. And in the LB 892, it says equitable interest derived from a contract. The intent is not ownership, someone who owns their property, but it's equitable interest that one obtains through a contract. This is where a potential legal argument, in my opinion, comes into play, because I talked to several real estate attorneys this past week, and they all said that a deed of trust is a contract. So in Nebraska, we are a deed of trust state. And so what happens is if I buy your house and I have to borrow money from the bank, I'm going to use a deed of trust with the bank, okay? And here's what happens. You transfer legal title to me at closing, and for a nanosecond, I have legal title. I have legal title long enough, just long enough, for me to then transfer legal title to what's called a trustee. Because when I borrow money from a bank in Nebraska, because we're a deed state, there are three parties to this transaction. We have the trustor, which is the borrower. We have the trustee, which is a disinterested, neutral third party that ends up getting legal title, and then we have the beneficiary from the bank. So you transfer legal title to me, and then I immediately transfer legal title to the trustee. I become the trustor as the borrower, the trustee is that disinterested third party, and the bank is the beneficiary. And what happens is the trustee has legal title and I get what's called equitable interest. I have equitable interest in a contract. So therefore I can then take the money from the bank and pay you. The point is the statute change will say that equitable interest derived from a contract. That is an interesting legal argument. And I know one would say, well, that's not a big deal because if it's challenged, they're going to bring in the intent of the law in the testimony at the legislature and all of that. I get all that. I'm just saying from a legal perspective, I find this interesting, and probably the statute should have better defined the intent of equitable interest, because on its face, there is no, in my opinion, different. I'm not an attorney. Just telling you what a couple of attorneys have told me, between equitable interest in a purchase contract and equitable interest via a deed of trust. That is the legal argument. Now, some other concerns that people had reached out to me about is if I'm a broker and all these people are going to get licensed, do I really want these people doing these transactions at my company? And therefore, will it increase the number of brokers that we have? And my answer to that is probably not. It won't increase substantially because, number one, there are several licensed agents already in the state of Nebraska doing these transactions that work for brokers. Number two is during the short sale season between 2009 and 12, we didn't see, there were a couple of companies that popped up that were doing short sales. However, we didn't see a big mass exodus from the real estate firms to these people starting their own companies. And number three is, in Nebraska, you just can't go out and get a broker's license. You have to have 2 years experience as a salesperson before you can do that. So that also makes it somewhat problematic. Here's what I do think is going to happen, and here's what I do think I'll see. And interestingly enough, right now in the multiple listing service here in Nebraska, the Great Plains Multiple Listing Service, I don't know about the other ones outstate, but I know the big one here in Omaha, Lincoln, you cannot list these types of transactions currently in the MLS. It violates MLS policy. Now, given the fact that the Nebraska Real Estate Commission and the State Association of Realtors, they basically both support this legislative bill, my guess is that the policy is probably going to change. Therefore, once it becomes legal under MLS policy, I guarantee you, like we saw with the short sales, we're going to see a lot of disclosures. Brokers are going to start writing all kinds of hold harmless disclosures for agents to do, which is the right thing, because there is an added level of liability from a lawsuit point of view and also from claims with the Real Estate Commission. So in that aspect, I think that this law forces the disclosures, which I do think is a good thing. Okay, once again, if you have not watched the previous video I did on LB892, check it out right here. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Click the little circle to my left. Other than that, comments and questions down below. And don't forget to subscribe. I would totally appreciate that. Thanks, everybody. See you all in the next informative video.